And Charlie, I think you have some more breaking news for us.
That's right, Tom and Nana. We're hearing from Ministry of Justice sources this afternoon who've told GB News that David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, was informed overnight about this case and was receiving more information today. We're told that he was receiving updates on the case of this 24-year-old Algerian who was accidentally released from the prison behind me, HMP Wandsworth, last week, and that he was receiving, the Deputy Prime Minister, more information about that while he was in the Commons today. Now, justice sources have told GB News that it would have been considered irresponsible for David Lammy to have provided an update to the House while he was still gathering information about this highly complex case, which is said to involve multiple agencies, including the Prisons and Probation Service, and of course also the Metropolitan Police. Now, this comes, of course, after David Lammy was asked several times by the Shadow Minister, James Cartledge, if any other offenders had been accidentally released, asked about asylum seekers in particular. Now, in this case, the foreign national, the Algerian, we've been told by Home Office sources, is not an asylum seeker, pointing to perhaps some of the complexity that David Lammy was still processing as he was being updated on this issue overnight. We heard a statement from David Lammy earlier this afternoon describing how his officials were working through the night on this urgent issue. Now, we're also understanding that the Metropolitan Police was only informed about this case yesterday at around 1 p.m. So why he was released from prison accidentally last Wednesday, but the Met was only informed yesterday, that's going to form the centre, I think, of a lot of the focus on this beyond the immediate issue for the Metropolitan Police, which is the manhunt. When it came to that recent appalling controversy of the convicted migrant sex offender Hadush Kibatu, we know that there was an accidental release around 12:45, but that Essex Police had been informed very quickly of, quote, an error, and then had referred the case onto the British Transport Police and the Metropolitan Police, with that manhunt taking 2 days before he was then rearrested in Finsbury Park in North London on the Sunday morning after his accidental release on Friday afternoon. But in this case, Tom and Nana, this foreign sex offender has already been out of this prison behind me for about a week now already, with the Metropolitan Police only being informed yesterday. Now, Mr. Lammy said he was absolutely outraged and appalled by the mistaken release of a foreign criminal wanted by the police. And he said that his officials have been working through the night, and we now understand, of course, that he was informed himself of this case. Now, last year, 262 prisoners were accidentally released from March 2024 to 2025. That is a rise on the 115 who were accidentally released in the year prior. So at an average of about 5 a week. It might not seem as something so extraordinary that the Justice Secretary might be informed on every single occasion. But the fact that Hadush Kibatu, the Ethiopian asylum seeker sex offender, had been released early, capturing so much of the public's focus with that shocking case, and now with this 24-year-old Algerian who we understand has previous sexual offences convictions, that has obviously propelled the issue to the forefront of our political focus. And of course, the public want desperately to have some answers on what steps the prison service are taking. David Lammy saying that he'd introduced more stringent checks, the most stringent checks since Hadush Kibatu was mistakenly released. But then a matter of days later, it's happened again, this time with this 24-year-old Algerian offender. Now, we've also heard a reaction from David Lammy's shadow minister. That's Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary. He said this is another shambles under Calamity Lammy's watch. Accidental releases of prisoners have more than doubled under this government, and he said that David Lammy doesn't have a clue what's going on. He said that the British people are being put in danger time and again due to the government's sheer incompetence. Well, as we said, that accidental release coming as those tighter restrictions, we're told, are being introduced. But clearly, these new restrictions not having the immediate impact that could have been expected. It's possible that there has been a delayed rollout to whatever these new stringent checks might be. We also don't know at this stage the prison sentence for this Algerian offender, what it was and how much time was left on his sentence. But David Lammy has now ordered an independent inquiry into Kibatu's release and a new 3-page checklist of new mandatory release measures. So that now requires a prison governor to be physically present when a foreign offender is released. So there'll be tough questions for HMP Wandsworth as they're thrown into the spotlight of this crisis. Was their governor physically present when this 24-year-old Algerian was accidentally released ahead of his sentence being completed? Kibatu's case, of course, would have been at the centre of this new review being launched by Dame Lynn Owens, the former head of the NCA, the National Crime Agency. But now we expect that this 24-year-old case, this Algerian foreign offender, who's understood also to have previous convictions for sexual offences, his case will almost certainly now also form a part of Dame Lynn Owens's review. We've also had a reaction, Tom and Nana, from Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary. He said that the release of another migrant poses danger to the public. He said that this was shocking. He says he needs to urgently confirm if the Ministry of Justice were informed about the release. Well, we have since had that confirmation with his officials working, we're told, overnight. GB News being informed by Ministry of Justice sources that he was also personally updated last night, was being updated through the night and also gaining more information about this case while he was in the House of Commons today. We understand that could have been including right up until PMQs when he was asked those 5 questions by James Cartledge, the Shadow Minister, on this case. But as a number of releases in error has shot up from 115 to 262, and there have now been 2 high-profile cases of foreign migrant sex offenders facing an early release, it's clear that the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, is under intense pressure, but the Prime Minister's spokesperson says he has full confidence in the Minister.
Charlie Peters, thank you very much. Well, let's have a look at David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, statement. This is what he said.
I'm absolutely outraged and appalled by the mistaken release of a foreign criminal wanted by the police. The Metropolitan Police is leading an urgent manhunt, and my officials have been working through the night to take him back to prison.
He went on to say victims deserve better and the public deserve answers. That is why I have already brought in the strongest checks ever to clamp down on such failures and ordered an independent investigation led by Dame Lynn Owens to uncover what went wrong and address the rise in accidental releases, which has persisted for too long.
He went on to say this latest incident exposes deeper flaws across the failing criminal justice system we inherited. Dame Lynn Owens' investigation will leave no stone unturned to identify these issues so we can fix them, improve safeguards and ensure the public is properly protected.
And Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick has told The Telegraph.
This is another shambles under Calamity Lammy's watch. Accidental releases of prisoners have more than doubled under this government, and David Lammy doesn't have a clue what's going on. The British people are being put in danger time and again due to the government's sheer incompetence. And
Nigel Farage, Reform UK's leader, said,
another dangerous criminal is on the loose thanks to Labour. What a total farce.
Well, joining us now, still in the studio, political correspondent Catherine Forster. So lots of response from all the other leaders. David Lammy, in his, once again makes reference to the previous government, as he was sort of saying that the system he inherited.
Yes, and now, as we've heard just from Charlie Peters, an admission that David Lammy did know right through Prime Minister's questions, which totally explains why he said everything other than answering the question. And also, he was visibly furious. I thought it was an incredibly bad-tempered. I mean, it always can get feisty, but he was really, really livid. And I guess because he knew what an incredibly difficult place the government were in. Now, the defence that they have given is said, you know, he was spoken to about this last night. They've been working through the night, new information. He felt it would be irresponsible when they sort of hadn't got all their ducks in a row to divulge this at Prime Minister's question. So that is the explanation. But look, this happened just 2 days after these key measures, these toughened checks, had supposed to be brought in following the release of Kabatu, after the being jailed for the assault of the 14-year-old girl. And I was just looking at what those enhanced checks are. Mandatory use of a checklist, a new 5-page checklist must be completed for every release. Senior staff sign off, so the duty governor personally responsible for expecting and signing off the release checklist. That was previously done by someone more junior. And physical presence for deportation cases for foreign national offenders being released under the early removal scheme, the duty governor being physically present. Other measures too. So it sounded like this would make a difference. And I have to say, I wonder in this case, HMP Wandsworth, was it simply the case that because these were so new that they hadn't been implemented? Because the whole point of this checklist is to stop this happening. So many unanswered questions. We know now that this man was not an asylum seeker, but so many unanswered questions. And of course, top of the list being, where is this man now? We know he was jailed for trespass with intent to steal. We know he had previously committed sexual offences. Indecent exposure is our understanding. But where is he? I mean, he could be anywhere. And the fact that he was out for nearly a week before the Met Police even knew.
Well, I win the bet, Tom.
Yeah, you do.
I told you. I said David Lammy knew. I could see by the way he was behaving, the way he was adamant, the way he turned it into an aggressive thing to try and deflect from himself. To me, his body language and the tone of his voice, I knew that he knew.
And what a bad choice as well. I mean, Catherine, do you think that there's a world in which David Lammy could have answered that second question that James Cartledge came with, has anyone else? Is there a world in which he could say, look, I've been briefed about something last night. It's not appropriate to give all the details now, but I will make a further statement to the House in due course. I mean, he could have said that and shut the issue down from his perspective without this sort of Damocles hanging over Prime Minister's questions for the rest of the session.
I guess he could. With the benefit of hindsight, that might have been a better move. Of course, James Cartledge would have still questioned and questioned. But I think they were wrong-footed because they obviously knew this was in the ether. They would have known that it was going to come out at some point. I guess they were hoping to get on top of it before that happened. But clearly the Conservatives and James Cartledge knew about it and knew that the news was about to drop, as indeed it did, right at the end of PMQs. But I did think David Lammy, I would say, it was not his finest hour. He was visibly furious. But at the end of the day, for all the Tories' failures, the underfunding of prisons that's gone on for so long, the buck stops with the current government. And he is the Deputy PM and the Justice Secretary. And as Charlie Peters has said, accidental release has more than doubled under this government.